Hemingway Stadium. So Michael Borky and I are with you this afternoon. Glad to be with you. Probably shouldn't delay much. The news today is Lane Kiffin related. That's kind of crazy.
No way.
I mean, we're 3 days away from a pretty important football game for Ole Miss in Fayetteville, where it's going to be freezing.
2 days away.
Today's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Sorry, 2 days away. Yeah,
2
days away from a football game. Very little conversation this week about football. The overall schedule pretty weak, and Ole Miss and Arkansas certainly a big deal. Again, C Spire text line if you want to get involved in the conversation, 601-879-4395. So I guess I stirred things up earlier with a tweet. Here it was. Lane Kiffin has received a new contract offer from Ole Miss that would make him one of the 10 highest-paid coaches in college football. It's now a waiting game to see if he will receive an offer from Auburn. We'll get more details for you this afternoon. So here we are. And that's actually where we are. The ball is largely in Lane Kiffin's court at this point. Look, there were a lot of responses immediately to that tweet that were like, well, he's only got to move up one spot to be a top 10 coach. I didn't say it was to move up to number 10. Without being specific on the exact number, I think when you look at average annual value, right? I mean, the way most of these contracts are structured is they grow over time. So if it's a 4-year deal that's got a total value of $40 million, it might be 8, 9, 10, 11. Or I don't even know if the math works on that, but it's an escalating contract. I think you're looking at in the $9 million a year range in terms of annual average value as to what Ole Miss has offered Lane Kiffin. They'll work through other details that have to be worked through. Lane Kiffin has been given carte blanche is not the way to describe it, but he has been given the authority and the resources to hire analysts. Ole Miss has got a bunch of analysts to hire support staff to compensate his assistant coaches at a way that is absolutely competitive with the rest of the SEC. And depending on which database you look at, he is currently the 11th or 12th highest paid coach in America. This year he's making $7.25 million. If he gets, a pretty significant bump, I mean, you're looking at a raise that's in the neighborhood of $2 million from where he is right now.
It's a significant number. That's big.
It is. Yeah, I mean, it's a big jump, and it's a significant commitment from Ole Miss. I don't even know that is an area where Ole Miss is completely comfortable, but I think they understand the importance that Lane Kiffin provides not just to the football program, but to the university as a whole. I've mentioned this. We've talked about it before. Freshman enrollment and overall student population is up significantly over the last 3 years at Ole Miss, and they are expecting another record freshman class for the 23-24 academic year. So we're in 22-23 right now, so 23-24 would be next year, and the anticipation is that they once again have a record freshman enrollment and kind of continue to grow as a university. And so this is not something where Keith Carter's just sitting there in his office by himself, twiddling his thumbs, going, I think I'll offer this. I mean, this is a university leadership decision. And both Keith Carter and Glenn Boyce, the chancellor at Ole Miss, understand the importance that Lane Kiffin has for Ole Miss, or the importance that he brings to the table university-wide. The question is, if Auburn offers him a contract, what will he do? And I don't know the answer to that. And frankly, unless you're talking directly to Lane Kiffin, you don't know the answer to that either. There are a lot of things that he's going to have to weigh. So what I'm saying right now is that Auburn has not officially offered Lane Kiffin a contract. There are a lot of people that believe it is coming. There are some people that say they're not entirely sure. I think most people that are covering this, whether it's from the Auburn perspective or the Ole Miss perspective, believe that an offer is coming at some point in the next 8 days, whether that's tomorrow or the Friday after the Egg Bowl, maybe the next 10 days if you want to go to the Sunday after the Iron Bowl, that most people believe that Auburn is going to make an offer There are power brokers at Auburn who say Lane Kiffin is the guy. There are others who are not entirely sure. And look, I mean, there are plenty of names that have been thrown out as it pertains to the Auburn search. There are people that push back on he's, almost a top 10 coach anyway. 1 is part of the top 10. 10 is part of the top 10. I wasn't locking in onto a specific number on where he would be.
As you know, there are people that are incapable of using their brains, and you just got to deal with that. Even people with national platforms. But, I mean, we're talking Ryan Day money. I mean, think about that for a second. This is Ole Miss we're talking about here. In the smallest population state in the SEC that they share with another SEC program. Regardless of what happens, I think people are, because I had somebody reply to me on Twitter and say, I heard it's only $2 million more. First of all, what do you mean only $2 million? If that is correct, and if it's $2 million more, that means he's making the same amount of money as the head coach at Ohio State. That means only 6 coaches in America make what he makes. And by the way, if you want to factor in the NFL, that would make him a top 10 paid coach in all of the sport of football, professional or college or otherwise. The fact that Ole Miss, remember, poor little Ole Miss, as people like to say, is committing this much to their football program, regardless of how this ends, is a message. It's a message being sent that the people there are committed to doing whatever they can to win. And it's, to me, it's significant regardless of if it's accepted or not. The fact that they're even in this position says a lot.
Well, the commitment level is really, really high from Ole Miss. So interestingly enough, even though what we're talking about right now is money and contract figures, I'm told that money isn't really the deciding factor for Lane Kiffin. Kind of going back and digging through some stuff and talking with some people, I was reminded that Lane Kiffin left Tennessee to go to Southern California for basically the same salary. It wasn't like, he made that move for money. He made that move because that was a dream job. It was a national brand, and it felt like, there was an opportunity there for him to go to a place where he could win national championships. Clearly, that didn't work out. And Lane Kiffin has publicly admitted multiple times that he probably made a mistake in making that move away from Tennessee after just 1 year. So I was thinking, what's Lane Kiffin got to weigh? First of all, he's got to wait on an offer from Auburn, if that is part of it. Does he want to leave a place where he's invested 3 years and has the program on an upward trajectory and moving in the right direction and getting national notoriety to go start over? Because he would be starting over. Now, with that said, I talked with somebody at Auburn earlier this week that told me there were going to be 45 open roster spots at Auburn. Whoever the next head coach at Auburn is going to be able to flip that roster in a short amount of time. And Auburn is a place where, if indeed the NIL numbers are to be believed, they're going to have the resources to be able to bring good players in a hurry and be competitive in a hurry. So the people going, he's just inheriting a terrible roster. That roster is not going to look anything like it does right now a year from now. What are Lane Kiffin's long-term career goals? People love to throw out, Alabama is his dream job, or he wants to be in the NFL. If those are his goals, is it easier to get to those places from Ole Miss or from Auburn? What's the family impact? Don't know what role that plays. Where's it easier to win? What's NIL look like in both places? What's the level of institutional support that's there? Happiness? By all accounts, he's pretty happy where he is. Who's he got to please? What's the level of autonomy? I think those are all things that factor into this. So, Auburn with an opening. Lane Kiffin, in basically every coaching cycle, is the sexiest name that's out there. I'm not saying that means that he is the best football coach that is out there, but every major opening that popped up a year ago, his name came up with, right? I mean, he was associated with in one way or another. How real it was with any of those jobs a year ago, who knows? Ole Miss made a big commitment to him a year ago, and Ole Miss has made a big commitment this year in offering Lane a contract extension and a significant raise. So he's got a contract offer from Ole Miss. And the question is he going to get a contract offer from Auburn? And we don't know the answer to that. There are a lot of people that say, oh, yes, he is their number one target, and there are others like, I don't know. They're still kind of going through it.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm fascinated with a couple of things. Is one, let's pretend that does happen. I expect it to happen. Truthfully, I think Auburn will be dumb for that not to be the case. If I were them, if I were John Cohen, he'd be my number one guy. Look at what he's doing. I mean, come on. How could you not want that to be your program? I would. I mean, for reference, if Ole Miss beats Arkansas, a game that they're favored in, and wins the Egg Bowl, a game that they're favored in, that would be back-to-back 10-win seasons, right? Auburn has never done that since I've been alive. Never done it. Since I've been alive, they've never done that. Miss. And obviously neither has Ole Miss because the first 10-win regular season was last year. Right. So I would want that on my campus right away. So if that does come, I think there are too many people that think that ends it. And there are people that are so caught up in the linear. They think it's like an auction. Or a better example, they think it's a poker hand. And the river card's already come. And here Ole Miss has flipped their cards over. And they've got a pair of jacks, right? And they think that if Auburn flips over their cards and it's a pair of aces, it's done. And this is over. Well, why did Ole Miss only offer $2 million more? I would be surprised, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, that's Ole Miss's best foot forward. That's not how you negotiate. That's poor negotiating. If you're the only one that has put an offer down, do you negotiate against yourself? Shout out Texas A&M. I wouldn't. You give them a substantial offer, which I believe is what they've done to your reporting. But I wouldn't have put all my cards on the table because what happens if the Auburn offer never comes?
Yeah.
It's negotiating 101. And there are people that think, well, if clearly the Auburn offer is going to come, so this is over. But it's not that simple because it's not linear. How many people close to or around Lane Kiffin have made reference many times to it not being linear? Well, Ole Miss offered 9.25, and when Auburn offers 9.5, he's going to go because it's $250,000 more. It's not really how that's going or how that's going to work for him. He's a different guy. It's not a 10-year thought here. It's more short-term. It's more immediate. And you brought up a good point. There's also family stuff involved. It's not as simple as this job offered 10, this job offered 9.5, therefore he's taking this job. So today isn't like a great day for Ole Miss either. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that he has an offer. Doesn't mean he's accepted it. Doesn't mean it's satisfactory. It might be, but we don't know. But it is not linear. If Auburn comes in with $500K more a year, doesn't mean he's going there either.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I don't necessarily believe that the number that Ole Miss has presented to him as a take-it-or-leave-it number is a final offer, is a, hey, this is what we can do. We're willing to do this. We're not willing to do a penny more, and if you want to leave, leave. I don't think that's – I think it's a good way to describe it. And your Texas Hold'em analogy is a good one as well. So, yeah, I mean, we don't know what the rest of the cards look like. And we get a message. I think this is a good question. This is from Tyler in Booneville. Will Ole Miss continue to give Kiffin a raise each time a big-time job comes open? As long as he's continuing to win, yes, they will, because it's market-driven. Now, you probably get to a point where you've done all you can do. Right? I mean, whether you have an income that is slightly above the poverty level, or you make $1 million a year or $10 million a year, you have a budget, right? I mean, you can if you make $10 million a year and you have $3 million in the bank, like just in liquid cash, and you're like, you know what? I really want to go buy that G650, and the price tag on it is $74 million. you can't go buy that airplane. Cross one jokes, we'll set those aside, right? You can't, because you can't afford it. Regardless of how much money you have. I mean, if you're Elon Musk and you want to go buy, I don't know, all of the Bahamas, you can't buy it for what your net worth is. I mean, that's a terrible example, but regardless of how much money you have, there's still a limit to what you can actually buy. And athletics departments are no different, right? I mean, your boosters will help support you. The SEC television contract money and postseason football and basketball money helps support you. But you come to a point where you only have a finite amount of money. And so you go up to where you're comfortable, and then maybe you press it a little past where you're comfortable, and then you have to look at, okay, well, I've got some money over here in savings, and I really don't want to drain my savings account, but I'm willing to do it because I think it's the right decision. I think it's a long-term play. But everybody's got money that runs out at some point, regardless of how much money you've got.
You keep going until you can't go anymore, though. I mean, I guess there is a ceiling, but if you're not there yet, you keep going if that's what it takes. And Chase makes a good point. He's talking about jobs in our life. I don't think this is inappropriate to share. Many years ago, I was not in pursuit of a job, but one reached out to me years ago. And it would have been at the time for more money, in a more expensive place to live, and significantly more hours. Also up north as well, in a place that I didn't really want to live to begin with. So further away from family, further away from friends. The salary number was higher, but it was a more expensive place to live in a volatile environment. By the way, the place since doesn't offer sports programming anymore. It would have been a bad situation, but a little bit more money. I stayed here because the other stuff besides money benefited me more. And look at what I'm doing today. It ended up being a great decision.
Yeah.
And that could be the case here, and it sounds like it is. So I got a text a second ago, well, if salary's not the end-all, be-all, what else is? You mentioned it all. It's everything else. It's NIL capabilities. It's ability to win. It's ability to get transfers. It's comfort. It's fit. It's things like freedom and not just program control. Too many people that cover Auburn think that when Ole Miss people mention how much freedom Kiffin has, they're talking about like football decisions, staff hiring decisions. It's not just that. It's not even anywhere close to being just that.
Lane Kiffin is not micromanaged at Ole Miss on any level, football or otherwise. He's just not. Keith Carter and Glenn Boyce, the chancellor, have given him a ton of leeway to do the things that are important to him and run his program the way that he wants to. But yes, I do think that it's important to note that, from a football standpoint, the things that are weighing in the decision are NIL capability, right? We're going to talk with Walker Jones from the Grove Collective a little bit later this afternoon and kind of get an update on where that is. Walker told me this morning that even in the last 24 hours, they have seen some pretty significant growth in terms of members and commitments to that. Will it be enough? I don't know. Also, the ability to get players, whether it's recruiting high school players or getting transfer players, and, that ties in directly to NIL. All of those things factor into this decision. And then, again, I feel like it's kind of beating a dead horse, but it's like, is Auburn going to offer him? He doesn't have an offer. So we'll see. We'll see where this goes. I mentioned Walker Jones is going to join us. Andy Staples will be with us later this afternoon. Also, Lee Sterling from Paramount Sports. We'll get some winners from Lee. We'll be right back. So, let's see here. I'm a season ticket holder, talking about at Ole Miss. I want to join the Grove Collective, but it feels a bit like an Ole Miss only fans. Nothing I can touch or can't get free somewhere else. What tangible benefit do I get? Do I get a concession stand voucher, free parking on game days, free loot crate every month? Oh, all I get is a signed letter? and maybe keep my coach and get some good players. Guess I could keep my $42 and buy a new hoodie from Rebel Rags. This feels like a fan tax.
Very fair question.
There are a bunch of fair questions rolled into that.
Yeah.
An Ole Miss only fan.
That's hilarious.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a level of it where it's a fan tax, but the difference in it being a tax and not is it's voluntary. You don't have to be involved with it, but with the way that the game is now played in recruiting and in player retention, somebody's got to be involved in it, right? So
yeah, I mean,
you can get on board or you can not get on board. And look, I'm not one to tell you how to spend your money, right? I mean, you spend your money the way that you believe it's right. And I'm also these are not my words. I had a text from a friend the other day that said basically anybody who doesn't contribute to the Grove Collective that is able to do so, you deserve to lose your coach. I don't know. I don't know that I would take it that far, but the reality is the programs that are competing at a national level, it's taken a little while, but they've all gotten their act together in terms of raising money for name, image, and likeness deals. You classify it however you call it, buying players, paying your players to say, call it whatever you want to call it, but it's happening, and if you want to get players and you want to keep players, you've got to be part of that game, period. And whether you call it a fan tax or Ole Miss only fans or whatever. And no, it's not. I mean, they've got small little benefits where you get a discount here, a discount there, or, exclusive access to some content. But ultimately, you're saying, I want to support the recruiting efforts at Ole Miss or fill in the blank school, and that's why I am giving monthly or annually or quarterly or whatever to the collective that is tied to my school.
Yeah, somebody on a live stream asked me this last night, and my reply was simple. Do you enjoy watching Quinshon Judkins play in an Ole Miss uniform?
Yeah.
I mean, it boils down to that. And it's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, that's what it is now. I think legal adults should be allowed to make as much money as they want for providing services, and football players are providing a service that we enjoy. It's why I have a career. I think they should be able to get whatever they want. It does feel like it that you're bleeding your fans some. Understand that. But if you want to win, it's the best way to do it.
This message, filling the stadium matters to Kiffin, too. Not the best track record this year for Ole Miss. You're misguided on that. Ole Miss has sold out all 3 of its home SEC games. They're going to sell out the Egg Bowl in 7 days, a week from today. Their ticket sales numbers were good for the 3 non-conference games at home, even though the butts in seats wasn't great. It's 100 degrees in September against bad non-conference teams. A lot of people don't want to watch that. Your diehards are going regardless. The people that are kind of fringe, it's expensive to go to games. It's expensive to travel games. I know Lane Kiffin made a big deal about that. He shouldn't have, but he did. Nick Saban has made a big deal of that in the past. Alabama fans are the same. LSU fans are the same. Nobody's filling up their stadium for bad non-conference games. But you know what? If your team's good and you're playing in the SEC, you're filling it up for conference games.
Yeah, I mean, say it out loud. That's one good thing I learned from Colin Cowherd, is say it out loud. Okay, so Lane Kiffin's weighing an offer from Ole Miss and Auburn, and he really wants to stay at Ole Miss. But remember in the Tulsa game when the fans left early? That's why I'm going to Auburn. No. Attendance at the Tulsa game is not a deciding factor in this decision at all. That doesn't make any sense at all.
How about this? One thing that is in Ole Miss's favor. John Cohen does not appear to respond to Jimmy Sexton's bully approach to negotiating coaches' contracts. A little inside information here. Just inside baseball. Jimmy Sexton is not a bully in negotiation settings. He just has what the other side wants. And so he is able to, in a pretty polite way. I ask a question of someone today that has dealt with Jimmy Sexton a lot. I asked him, I was like, how's Jimmy been? He was like, Jimmy's always good. He's just representing his clients. He's doing his job. People love to vilify Jimmy Sexton. Jimmy Sexton's really good at his job. And he's good at his job because he has a commodity. I'm using this loosely, right? He has a commodity that he is selling that the buyers desperately want. And they're passionate about. That's why Jimmy Sexton is good at his job. And he's got a proven track record of delivering for his clients. That's why he's the most successful college football agent, period.
Yeah. We did get a message, too, about, if he does leave, the fact that this offer is on the table is significant. Again, if I understand it correctly, and they're giving him a $2 or around a $2 million raise, that's approaching coming very close to what Ohio State is paying their coach. I mean, you are making your job extremely attractive, whether or not this offer is accepted. I promise you. There are too many people nationally that still have like a 1980s view of the college football landscape. They think Nebraska is still a national power and stuff like that. Like I said earlier, regardless of what happens, if you are able to pay similarly to Ohio State, which is what this is, if Day's making a little bit more, he's making a little bit more, but you are in where you're only talking about, $300,000-400K. I say only. It's a lot of money. Between you and Ohio State, then you are opening up your door to candidates that 10 years ago, your door wasn't open for. It's a big deal. It matters. It really does, regardless of the outcome here. This being out there, this number being public and known, if he happens to leave, your candidate list will be stronger than people will give you credit for. Because that is insane. That's crazy money. It's top 10 money in all of football.
Jeff says, do you feel that as of right now, Ole Miss is at the level of Auburn where they are no longer considered a stepping stone to a better job? Thanks, Jeff. That's an interesting question, Jeff. I do. Okay, so your question is, as of right now, today, as we sit here, is the Ole Miss job on the same level as the Auburn job? Yes, today it is. Today it is. Is there the potential for more upside at Auburn than there is at Ole Miss? Yeah, history would say yes. But the fascinating thing is, Borky pointed out a second ago, said in his lifetime, Auburn has not won 10 games in back-to-back seasons. The highs at Auburn are really, really high. 2010, they win a national championship. 2012, they play for a national championship. But the lows, man, there's nobody that does a free fall bottom out quite like Auburn. And the other thing, the second that things don't go well at Auburn, whether the head coach is Gene Chizik, who won a national championship, or Gus Malzahn, who played for a national championship, or Shug Jordan, or Lane Kiffin, the second that it doesn't go well, Auburn turns on its head coaches. They did it to Tommy Tuberville. They did it to Terry Bowden. They did it to Gus Malzahn. They did it to Gene Chizik. They did it to Brian Harsin from the day he was hired. I'd have to go back and kind of the Shug Jordan, not necessarily so. That was a little bit different. Pat Dye was a little bit different. Pat Dye stepped down as the head football coach first, and then he stepped down as the AD. Or maybe I've got those backwards. But there was some NCAA stuff that kind of necessitated that. The last 5 coaches that Auburn has had, I'm talking about torches and pitchforks. But that's okay, right? Because you know what the highs are at a place like that as well. So you just got to decide what's good for you. You go into a situation like that eyes wide open. I'll fix.
We were asked on the text line earlier, and if you want to say more than this, then so be it, or go for it. That sounded condescending. When we're going to have anybody from the Bulldog Initiative on, the offer has been extended. The opportunity has been afforded. And so, yes,
Yeah,
we would love for that to happen.
Yeah, no, I mean, the bottom line is, look, I'll be super straight with you on that. When Walker was on with us a few weeks ago, I sent a direct message to Charlie Winfield on Twitter. I thought I had Charlie's cell number. I didn't, so I sent him a DM. He got back to me a couple of days later, said he'd love to be on with us. He had some things that were going on at the time, and he needed to wait a little bit. And I told him we'd love to visit, and the offer stands, whenever it's convenient for him. And I think Hey Dad's talked with him as well. And Charlie has said he wants to come on and talk with us, and we're open to doing that. But like a lot of people that are involved in collectives, Charlie Winfield has a real job. He has a real big boy job that takes a lot of his time. And so a lot of the stuff that he's doing on the side, if you want to use a lawyer term, is kind of pro bono, or at least very little compensation tied to it. Yes, Charlie Winfield, who's doing a really good job with the Bulldog Initiative, has an open invitation to join us. I've told him that. Hey Dad's told him that. And we're going to get it done at a time that's convenient for him. That just period.
Yeah.
Oh, this is good. Price is listening. He sends us a message. He says, I'm listening to you guys and Canuck cooking banana pepper deer sausage. You win.
Look at that.
Looks great on the grill. Food Friday presented by Polk's Meat coming your way tomorrow afternoon. Look forward, as always, to that. I got a question that came a second ago asking about the viability of Ole Miss's NIL situation and when that it would be competitive. And the answer is it's competitive today. Is Ole Miss's collective, is its treasure chest, war chest, however you want to describe it, as big as other places? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But in a national NIL landscape, Ole Miss is absolutely competitive today. And somebody was trying to draw a comparison of that to Auburn. And the reality is, I don't know how much money Auburn's got. I've seen reports that range from they've got $8 million available for NIL to they've got $15 million available for NIL. Pretty big variation there. And I don't know what that means either, right? I mean, is that money that is sitting in the bank? Is that pledges? Is that, hey, if you go hire the right guy, then I'm going to give this? I have no idea. So I don't discount that Auburn has tons of resources available for the purposes of NIL. Here's where I will compliment Auburn, if that is indeed the case. In April of this year, we're in November, 7 months ago, there was a staff member at Auburn who I heard say, we can't compete right now with what's happening in the NIL landscape. And so if that was the case in April, and Auburn is now sitting on an 8-figure war chest for the purposes of NIL, then congratulations. You guys have done a lot of work in a short amount of time. And that's really impressive.
It is impressive. What did you wait for?
I'm sorry?
Why not you?
Oh.
Not you. Why didn't Brian Harsin get the opportunity to recruit with a war chest? That's a question that I would be asking myself if I was being...
You know the answer to that
question.
Oh,
I know. I know. It's more of a rhetorical question. That's something that I would be asking myself if I was a prospective coach in this. Lane Kiffin, Matt Rule, Dabo Sweeney, whoever.
Hugh Freeze.
Well, Hugh Freeze is taking it regardless. It doesn't matter to him.
Yeah, but the NIL piece will be there for Hugh Freeze.
Why not? If I lose to Alabama, are you going to withhold NIL money from us? Is that what you're going to do? That's backwards.